Hi there, everyone. My name is Whitney Bausman, and I am the author of the book Partly Sunny, An Honest and Humorous Look at the First Weeks of Bringing Home a Newborn. The reason that I am reading my book in this chapter-by-chapter read-aloud format is because I've come to realize that sometimes when you are a new parent, it is nearly impossible to find the time to sit down and read a book. So my mission is to share the contents of this book in a way that is most helpful and most useful to you. If this is your first time here, I hope that you will hop back in our Partly Sunny playlist so that you can get started at the beginning, which is the preface. And if you have been here with us from the beginning of the book, then we are going to continue today where we left off last time. And that is going to be with chapter 1, Things You Shouldn't Think or Say. My firstborn arrived just after 9:30 p.m. in a birthing suite directly next to a family waiting room. Throughout the process of delivery, this waiting room housed my mom, my mother-in-law, my father-in-law, my aunt, and my 2 sisters. After the baby and I were medically cleared and settled, my husband Jonathan ventured next door to inform our beyond excited and eager family members that we had welcomed a son into the world, whom we named Clark. I didn't have to guess when that announcement was made, as the collective screams of my loved ones lit up the entire labor and delivery hall. My family members were literally shushed like a bunch of naughty kindergartners, which is so fitting and cracks me up to this day. Add to our clan my brother-in-law and sister-in-law who trekked over from the postpartum floor. They had delivered their firstborn just a day before, and we had quite a little welcoming party for our guy. The first few hours of Clark's life were filled with the smiles and happy tears of not only Jonathan and I, but many of those who we love most in life. Looking back on it now, I was so full of hormones and hype in those first moments. Although I was a bit of a sweaty, shaky mess thanks to adrenaline, I was in awe of what my body had just done. I was holding a perfect little boy in my arms. I had a son. I was a mom. My hubby beamed with pride and was adorably reduced to tears every 5 seconds, and I had never loved or appreciated him more. We were surrounded by our closest supporters, none of which could wipe the smiles from their faces. Truly, everything felt right in the world. These beautiful, much welcomed, and expected first moments are some of the most special and sacred of my 31 years. I'm 37 now. The moments that followed them, however, the unfiltered and unexpected second moments that caught me by surprise, moments that were not smile-filled or consumed by happy thoughts, well, they were difficult to swallow. I'm convinced that when it comes to having a newborn, there are 2 distinct lines of thinking. First, there are the things you think you'll think prior to parenthood, and then there are the things you actually think upon becoming a parent. The differences between the 2? Significant, noteworthy, and for me anyway, just plain huge. The things you think you'll think are happy things and nice things and things similar to all the bits of wisdom and encouragement I'm sure you heard time and time again during your pregnancy. These are the babies are such blessings and being a parent is the best job sorts of things. What you may actually think though, I'm here to tell you that it might be a whole lot less presentable. What if I told you that within mere hours of becoming a mother, I questioned whether or not I had made the biggest mistake of my life? What if I told you that despite loving my child deeply, there were moments early on when I didn't love being a parent at all? What if I told you that instead of the adjectives I had anticipated, like wonderful, amazing, beautiful, or perfect, many of my first thoughts as a new mom contained descriptors more like awful? My thoughts, my real life, new parent thoughts, here are a few of them in their honest, terrible glory. This is the worst. Why exactly do people do this? Never happening again. Oh, and just wait, here's the clincher. Maybe we shouldn't have done this. Ew, right? Who even thinks, let alone admits to thinking these sorts of things as a new mom? What sort of parent goes so quickly from those pristine first moments to mucky second moments? What kind of a person must I be or have been in order to be able to hold my own child and still have such ugly thoughts? The answer to these questions is a person who simply thought that parenthood was going to look and feel a lot different than it actually did in the beginning. When the images of my pre-parent hopes didn't quite line up with the realities of my actual parent existence, I found myself in a place with lots of thoughts that new moms just don't go around parading. When the sleepless nights felt long and endless, when my baby wailed despite my best efforts to figure out what he needed, when breastfeeding was cumbersome and complicated and uncomfortable and looked so far from the images in my head or all of those pamphlets I'd been given, when I simultaneously wanted company yet felt overwhelmed by the presence of visitors, when I found myself in unexplainable tears, when I looked at my husband and wondered if he and I would ever have a moment to ourselves again, yeah. These were the times when less than pretty thoughts prevailed, and parenthood just wasn't the blessing I was promised. Despite the well-wishers of my pregnancy who willed for me over and over and over again that I enjoy every moment, I just didn't. I wasn't even close. So why then was there such a mix-up between the expectations and realities of life as a new parent for me? Well, I think it's twofold. For starters, the nature of the experience itself is a beautiful thing, which led me to have beautiful hopes. If you strip away the sweat and pain of childbirth and delivery, childbirth really is an exhilarating, miraculous experience. Ask just about any parent out there to list for you the 5 very best days of their life, and I can almost promise you that the birthday of their child will be included. What's more, if you strip away the sleep deprivation and the demands of caring for a newborn, becoming a parent is pretty awesome. Transitioning from a couple to a family is plain and simple a cool thing to witness and be a part of. And newborns? I mean, come on, guys. There is nothing on earth better than holding a tiny sleeping baby on your chest. Babies are just cute and squishy and capable of turning even the most burly of men into a puddle of mush. Babies bring lots of good things into a world that doesn't often look good at all anymore, and that's kind of a big deal. On top of the beautiful nature of the childbirth experience as a whole, there's lots of beautiful talk that often leads expecting parents down a road of false expectations. Positive, cutesy, and cliche things are strewn upon soon-to-be parents by the boatload. It's no surprise, really, that the well-meaning folks in our lives bombard us with happy, sappy comments during pregnancy. As we've already established, becoming a parent is pretty from a surface-level perspective, and it's only natural for others to share the good bits of welcoming a newborn into the world, because it's human nature to emphasize the positive and minimize the negative. We highlight all the good stuff. The cute onesies, perfect shades of pink and blue with which to paint nurseries, and trendy cool baby names, while sweeping the not-so-good stuff under the rug for naive and unsuspecting new parents to discover for themselves. For those of us who have experienced parenthood firsthand, we don't want to scare our loved ones away from joining us on the ride. Totally wrecked post-delivery bodies, hormonal breakdowns, and even marital tension fueled by sleep deprivation? These things aren't exactly sweet and bubbly conversation points to broach with new and soon-to-be parents. But guess what? Real life. If you're a pregnant reader who is in the midst of the flurry of advice, wisdom, and encouragement, I'm willing to bet that the majority of the things you hear are warm and fuzzy. I'm also willing to bet that when you do hear something that isn't 100% warm and fuzzy, it most often relates to the subject of sleeping, or not sleeping, to be more accurate. We all know that the gift of a full night's sleep is most likely a several-month, if not several-year sacrifice on the part of one or both parents when a baby arrives on the scene. Because of this, opening up about the sleep you certainly won't be getting as a new parent is sort of a safe spot when it comes to people being just a tad honest with expecting moms and dads. Sleep deprivation is definitely real, to the point that I'll spend an entire chapter discussing the realities of exhaustion soon enough. The reality, however, is that the woes of new parenthood stretch far beyond sleep deprivation. While I wholeheartedly believe that fatigue is at the core of the struggle and makes every aspect of caring for a newborn harder, there are lots of other hard things that I didn't expect as a new mom simply because no one ever told me to. Namely, it was hard to come to terms with the basic fact that I didn't love the process of becoming a parent. I didn't love the physical, emotional, and hormonal mess that I had turned into. The fact that I was swollen and sore almost literally from head to toe too, not super fun or flattering. Then there were demands of my new 24/7 job to consider. Seeing 2 a.m. and 3 a.m. and 4 a.m. and basically every other hour of the entire day for reasons beyond my control just wasn't something that I enjoyed. Who would? What's more, I didn't love the way I felt because of all the awful things I was thinking. The things I didn't think I'd think. When my thoughts were plenty gross sounding and had me finding fault in something that I thought was supposed to be picture perfect apart from being tired, I felt like the literal worst. I felt like the worst mom. I felt like the worst wife. In all actuality, I felt like the worst human. I didn't feel like I was having the same experience that every other mom before me must have had, especially because there were people out there who did this willingly more than once. I loved Clark undoubtedly, but I didn't yet love being his mom, or a mom, period. When I was pregnant, there was lots and lots and lots of baby talk. Every conversation always focused on how I was feeling or looking in carrying this little one. What I should or shouldn't be doing in carrying this little one. Or how excited folks were to meet this little one. The people in my life, it seemed, didn't avoid the topic of pregnancy or parenting. They just didn't get really real with me. During those pregnancy days, I heard a lot about the glories of newborns and parenting. I heard a lot about the blessings and the sunny moments and the highs of it all. What I didn't hear about, however, was the crash that promptly follows those highs. While others were quick to tell me about how wonderful and colorful becoming a parent would be, they weren't as quick to tell me that sometimes anyway, that it would be ugly, messy, hard, and scary as crap, too. I struggled with my thoughts big time on the inside, but beyond some obvious moments of frustration and fatigue, they remained internal. Even my husband was left in the dark because, quite frankly, I was appalled at myself. For those of you who know Jonathan, you know that he is just about the nicest person in the world. I'm talking nice to the point that there have been times when I have actually gotten mad at him for being too nice, as this makes me look or feel like a complete fill-in-the-blank just for having a whiny, selfish, and human moment. Nothing I could have ever thought or said would have made him love me less or think any less of me as a mother or wife. I can say this with certainty now, and I'm sure that I knew it then, but the fog of fatigue paired with the embarrassment that I was afraid to feel in coming clean was enough to keep me quiet and alone. At first, anyway. As I started to discover some cracks in my isolation, however, I suspected that perhaps I wasn't so horrible of a person after all. Fortunately for me, I'm not usually a bottler of feelings or one to hide what's going on, even when it's ugly. Hence, this book. Except for when I am feeling super mature and handle one of the occasional disagreements in my marriage with the silent treatment or the you should know what I'm thinking game, it typically doesn't take me long to say what's on my mind. As a child, I most often got in trouble for talking back to my dad or inserting myself in the middle of an argument between my parents. As an adult, I can be honest to a fault at times. Well, true to form, as I slowly emerged from the fog of brand spanking new parenthood, I began to call bull on the idea that I was alone in my thinking. In order to test the waters and figure out if I was the only beyond awful parent out there with such thoughts, I started putting little feelers out there to my nuts-and-a-half sisters who reproduce like it's their job, Alicia and Ashley. At the time, Alicia had 3 children and Ashley had 4. I didn't share anything too ugly or revealing because I didn't want to be the only one who was anything less than an A+ on the mom spectrum. But I did allow myself to be real-er in tiny steps. Instead of, I thought this was going to be amazing and it's actually kind of the worst gig ever, which is what I was really thinking. I played it a tad safer and would say things like, was this hard for you guys too? And you know what I got back from my older super mom sisters? Totally. Still is. Since I didn't end up feeling embarrassed or isolated when I approached my sisters, I added my mom to the mix. My sisters may be pretty awesome, but my mom is the super mom of all super moms. Like Jonathan, she is annoyingly nice, and basically raised my sisters and I as a single parent while working a full-time job, cooking dinner every evening, and showing up at every single stupid dance recital, volleyball game, or National Honor Society induction. My mom's response? Yep, me too. In fact, I think she actually said something along the lines of, I missed my old life, and I wanted it back. Amen, Mom. Slowly but surely, I was turning the corner on hiding from and with my very non-storybook feelings regarding motherhood and the newborn days. I realized that I had my mom and my sisters in my corner at least, and that they had been in the place I presently was. It was right around this time that I sent out an email to my coworkers with some updates on Clark, along with the obligatory cute baby photos. He had been exceptionally fussy that morning and wanted nothing to do with anything other than me holding him. When I finally managed to get him to sleep for a whole 5 minutes outside of my arms, I parked myself at the computer to type a quick message and check in at work. I was tired, I hadn't yet showered, and I was already yearning for Jonathan to get home from work, even though it was like 10 in the morning. I can't recall the exact text, but I basically said something along the lines of, I am reminding myself to enjoy all the moments, even those filled with Clark's cries, because I know he will only need me for so long. How eloquent and BS-y, right? I know myself well enough. Here's what I was actually thinking. Can someone please drop me a venti caramel macchiato right about now, because I can't even handle this day. I love Clark so much, but holy crap! Here are a few pictures that will fool you into thinking motherhood is always enjoyable, that I have a content baby, and that all is well in my world. Much better. In some ways, I actually think this email was a bit of self-talk and personal therapy as much as it was anything else. I think I was hoping that if I put it in writing, it would be a self-fulfilling prophecy, or at least a good reminder. Maybe it would give me some encouragement to enjoy the day and not just survive it, as sometimes happens in the world of a new parent. Well, my coworkers, they got the message. They adored the pictures, and they responded, and responded, and responded. The majority of the responses I received were expected and put together, kind of like the gag-worthy message of mine that prompted their return to communication in the first place. What a precious little boy! Enjoy your time at home! You all look so wonderful! Barf, barf, barf. One response, however, was much lengthier than the others, and in the best way possible slapped me right across the face, exactly when I needed it to. Carrie, the sender, shared that when she became a new mom, she worked hard to make herself look happy and perfectly in love to onlookers. Folks would ask her how things were going, and her answer would be, great! Just like me, however, motherhood wasn't at all what she had anticipated, and it left her feeling like a bad mom. One day, a friend of Carrie's popped over for a visit and asked how life as a new mother was treating her. Before Carrie could even get out the signature response, her friend looked her in the eyes and gave her this gold. It sucks sometimes, doesn't it? When these words freed her to understand that she wasn't alone, abnormal, or awful at all, Carrie stood in her kitchen and cried tears of relief with her friend. And when I read this email, questioning whether or not what my own loved ones and I were admitting to feeling reached beyond just our family, I also cried. I cried because I felt understood. I cried because I felt normal again. At this point, the blinders were off, and it started to get really real. On what has become an ongoing group text between my mom's sisters and I, a place where we laugh at each other, roll our eyes at one another, share prayer requests, and just keep it oh so real, I probably said more horrible things than good things some days in the beginning, simply because I finally felt like I could without being judged or ashamed. What I never got were responses of surprise or disgust. What I always got were responses of empathy, mutuality, and strengthened camaraderie. I thought that being honest would be embarrassing or isolating, but instead I found myself getting closer to those I could come clean to. After having kept my feelings hidden during Clark's first weeks of life, a time that was so hard because it was just demanding, depleting, and different, I vowed never to put myself in that place again. I vowed to allow myself any and every thought and feeling that crossed my mind should I ever have another child. I vowed to accept that I could be a good mom and still think that being a mom wasn't always awesome, because it's not. Remember how I wondered why people even have children in the first place and was darn sure that I would not be repeating the experience? Well, when Jonathan and I returned to the delivery room for the birth of our daughter Annie, just 20 months after Clark was born, we were there on very willing terms. If you're one of the pregnant readers out there, you may be feeling a little scared or uncomfortable processing any or all of my reality. Take heart in what I just said. I chose to become a mommy again not long after finding myself in a not so nice place because I wanted to do it a second time. I knew it was going to be rough and real, but I wanted it again. I wanted to feel the high of creating new life and watching it take a breath for the first time. I wanted to see my sweet husband melt again as he held his brand new infant. I wanted my little boy to experience life with a backup singer. I also wasn't completely opposed to being showered with 98 casseroles one more time. But I digress. Guys, I wanted all of these things, even knowing that there were lots of other, less desirable things headed my way. In the beginning, there's a pretty good chance you're going to feel like my own mom felt when parenthood was new and different and nothing looked like what she had expected. She missed her old, predictable, self-centered, dependent-free life, and you will too. You won't miss it all the time, thankfully. But when you do, you'll miss it deeply. You'll long for the simplicity of those before baby days. The days when you could come home from work to an empty, quiet house and set up on the couch for just a few minutes to read the mail and catch a bit of Ellen before starting dinner prep. Dinner that would be eaten hot, as anticipated. Dinner that could be actually savored and not inhaled. Yep, those days. You'll miss them, and at times, you'll want them back. On the flip side of the coin, however, is the reality that while you'll miss your old life, you'll very quickly discover yourself in a place where your new life, diapers and all, is a much sweeter life. It's a much more purposeful, meaningful life. Before you know it, your sweet baby will become so embedded and ingrained in your everyday living that you won't be able to, nor would you even want to, imagine life without him or her. Life with a child is a harder life and a much more demanding life for sure, but it's also a richer life, worthy of every sacrifice. Today, I can hold my head high and own all of the ugly and isolating things I thought in the difficult days after the births of my children, especially my firstborn. Discovering that I didn't love every moment of parenting, that being a mom didn't always feel like a blessing, and that the sunshiny expectations I had of life with a newborn were pretty far from the realities I experienced, well, all of this was normal and okay. What I came to realize through hiding my thoughts and feelings was that this left me feeling like the crappiest of people and the exact opposite of the kind of mom I had hoped to be. The second time around, by giving myself grace and sharing my yuck more readily, I enjoyed those first days and weeks more than I ever thought possible. Given the reality of the things dripping from my body and the sleep I certainly wasn't having, owning the awful bits of bringing home my baby the second time around made the beautiful bits so much sweeter. And with that, we have reached the end of chapter 1. My hope and prayer is that whoever you are and wherever you are in life, that my honesty and humor can resonate with you and make you realize that you are not alone. You are seen, you are heard, you are valuable. And even though you probably don't feel like it most of the time, you are an awesome parent. And while that is it for our video today, I hope to see you again very soon for chapter 2.